Hello, this is openZmeter team. Through this video, we want to show how to configure the tariffs template. Why is it necessary to configure tariffs on an openZmeter? Well, openZmeter can transform energy data into economic data for each month or billing period. For many people, knowing the power consumed has the purpose of understanding the costs involved. By configuring the tariffs template, you have access to the economic information. This is openZmeter's main screen for economic data. You can access by clicking Energy Stats and then Costs. Now, how are tariffs configured? There are two main steps. The first one is to set up the tariffs template, and the second one is to configure your particular case. Let's begin with the first step. The tariffs template is shown when clicking Settings. It is possible that your main screen shows like this. In this case, click in the colored box in the top right corner, and then the menu will appear. In our case, some tariffs are already configured. This is our test case. To edit it, click Edit, and to create a new tariff, click Add. Let's create a new tariff. In order to create a new tariff, you need to fill up the different sections as follows. The first one, Name. It's necessary to identify the tariff you are creating. Let's name it, for example, openZmeter 1. The next one is Time Zone. Change it to the capital of the country where your openZmeter is installed. This affects the tariffs rates available and the pricing associated with consumed energy. Next, set date and end date. The usual period established in this section is 1 year, the year in which the openZmeter is being used. This is because each annual period, tariffs and prices are subject to change. It is necessary to edit or add a tariff each new year. In the case of Spain, the default dates shown are from January 1st to the last day of December. However, if in your area the annual period varies, for example, from September 1st to the last day of August, the date should be changed as follows. Click in the calendar and choose the date. You can change it by clicking the month and then the day. And the same with end date. Another form of changing the date is by clicking in the arrows. To switch between months. If the contract conditions change during the year, they will be modified in the Rates section, which will be explained later. The next section is Description. This section is not compulsory. It helps to identify in more detail the openZmeter used. An example could be the installation where it is located or who will use it. The last section is Weekends as and Holidays as. Some rates are subject to change on weekends or holidays. Please indicate in this section if it is necessary to take them into account or not for the type of rate used. The warning message at the top of the tab will appear until the data for the tariff periods and seasons shown below are filled in. The following section to be filled in the tariffs template is the periods section. It is necessary to add, according to your type of tariff, the number of periods that compose it. These periods can be added to the plus symbol in the upper right-hand corner. For each one, it is necessary to fill in the following sections. Name. It is automatically associated. The first period created will be called P1, the second P2, and so on. The next one is power mode. Manually, it is necessary to indicate the period to which it refers, according to the tariff used. These are default values depending on the country. The next one is reactive mode. It depends on the zone that defines this type of period in the tariff. In the case of the example, Spain, ESP will be selected. And finally, color. You can distinguish the period with a color if you wish. With these three sections, a period will be defined. If you want to delete the last period created, press on the X in the upper right corner and select OK in the message. As an example, it is shown below how the periods could be defined in the case of the Spanish 6.X tariff. Then, if you go back by clicking on the return arrow in the upper right corner of the window, it shows Tariffs Template's main window. You will see the error message still appear. To avoid this, it is necessary to configure the season section as follows. In this section, it will be necessary to know the distribution diagram of the periods of the tariff to be used. All the periods that are created must cover the whole time of the invoice definition adjusted in Tariffs Template start date and end date. To add a season, click on the plus sign in the upper right corner of the initial window. Each season can group days and/or months of the year that have the same distribution of periods throughout the 24 hours of the day. As an example, the first season of Tariff 6.X will be defined. In this case, it is the first month of the year, January, and it is defined as follows. The different sections must be filled in. First, the name. In this case, as the season corresponds to the whole month of January, you should choose a name that you can easily identify, as there can be a considerable number of seasons, depending on the rate used. Let's name it January. Next, from and to. Select the dates referred to in this season. In this case, the entire month of January is selected. The months and dates are selected in the same way as in the first section in Tariffs Template. And finally, hourly rates. For each of the 24 hours of a day in the defined season, you select the period associated with it. When pressing a period to each hour, 4 different periods appear. These are the ones defined in the period section. If 2 periods had been defined, only 2 options will appear to be chosen each hour. Tariff 6.X has 6 different periods, but periods 3 4, and 5 have been grouped into one, P3, because of the similarities between them in the Spanish model. So period 1 is P1, period 2 is P2, periods 3, 4, and 5 are P3, and period 6 is P4. Associating each hour of the day with the corresponding period will define the January season as follows. In Tariff 6.x, January has the same period structure as February. They can be grouped together in the same season, or you can double the season, change its name, and modify the calendar to cover the whole of January and February. In the case of grouping January and February in the same season, it is necessary to extend the date in the to section so that it covers the 2 months in total. In case of duplicating the season, you must click on Duplicate to the right of the season created. Once duplicated, you can change the name to February. And then the date of from and to is modified so that it covers the month of February and not January. Finally, to delete a season, press on Delete to the right of the season and select OK in the pop-up message. To finish with the example of the seasons, for the Tariff 6.x, is shown the set of all the necessary ones to cover the annual period defined in Tariff's template. With this done, the warning message that appeared in Tariff's template is now as follows. It summarizes the data previously configured. The list section to be configured in the Tariff's template window is Holidays. It is not necessary to configure it if you have previously selected Holidays as Don't Apply. In this section, you will define the holidays that are considered. To add a new date, click on the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner of the window. It is necessary to fill in the following sections. Name identifies the holiday, for example, let's say New Year. Then from and to indicate the period covered by the holiday. In the case of New Year, is the 1st of January, just covering one day. Then go back clicking in the arrow on the top right corner of the window. There you have the holiday created. If you want to delete a holiday, select Delete and then OK. With these steps, you have already configured the Tariffs template window. You have therefore a defined and usable tariff in the year of configuration. Once you have finished with the process of creating a new rate, it is necessary to save it by clicking on the appropriate symbol in the upper right corner of the main window of Tariffs template. A message appears at the top as a summary indicating the seasons of which the tariff is composed, the periods of the same, and the holidays that are taken into account. Now, the second step to configure a tariff completely is to set the individual configuration for each user. Once the type of tariff has been defined, the prices and ranges in which it will be used throughout the year will be specified for each user. You can access the screen by selecting the magnifying glass icon. The name of the openZmeter, its online status, and the serial number are displayed, Clicking on the arrow next to Select displays the following drop-down menu. Then select Rates. To add a new one, click on the plus sign in the upper right corner of the window. A new window will appear, where you must fill in the following sections. Base Tariff. When you select this section, the tariffs defined previously in Tariffs template will appear as an option. In our example, the tariff openZmeter 1 was defined, which appears in the drop-down menu together with another tariff created previously. Select openZmeter 1. Then From and To. Specific dates will be defined within the period defined in the initial tariff. In the case where only one type of tariff and contract is used during the entire defined tariff period, the time covered by the rate will be the same as that of the definition of the tariff. On the other hand, it may happen that, in the middle of the year, the company is changed, or the energy cost terms are modified for another reason. In this case, it will be necessary to create a new section in Rates that defines the new configuration within the tariff period. For example, we assume that you change your electricity company or contract in June. To define that there has been a change, it is necessary to create a new rate, updated to the new contract. The new rate was defined between June 1st and the last day of December of the same year, which is from where the change occurred until the end of the annual period defined above. The message at the top reminds us of the data previously configured in the tariffs template about seasons and holidays. The next section to be modified in the Rate section is Periods. This section shows the periods that make up the type of tariff used. The tariff 6.x has 6 periods in total that have been grouped into 4 periods, as mentioned above. The following 3 blocks must be filled in for each period. First, contract power on kilowatts. The power in kilowatts that has been contracted for the supply of the installation must be indicated. In the case of a dwelling, it is usually around 4.5 kilowatts. This is the maximum power that can be consumed at any given time. This data does not change during the contract. Then, power costs in euros per kilowatts per day. The cost of energy per kilowatts per day contract should be indicated according to the specific case of the user and his company. This is a fixed price, regardless of the energy consumed. It is possible that the consumption invoice will indicate this data separately for each period. In this case, this value is added to the corresponding column. However, if the cost of kilowatts per day appears as a single value for the whole contract without distinguishing between periods, there are 2 ways of representing it in the power costs columns. The first option is to add the only power cost term in a period, for example, in period P1, and leave the rest of the periods at 0. The second option is to distribute the power costs value equally among the number of periods. For example, for a power cost value of 0.10 and the tariff in the example, divide 0.10 by 4, as there are 4 periods into which the tariff has been divided. As a result, there was a value of 0.02, which should be noted in the power costs column for all periods. The third column is energy costs in euros per kilowatt-hour. This last column shows the cost per energy consumed. This is a variable cost data that will have a different value for each period. It is not necessary to write down the consumption in kilowatts-hour in each period, as it is a data that is found between the measurements of the openZmeter. As an example, it is shown the configuration for the first two tariff periods. The next section to be filled in the right section, is concepts. Additional data will have to be added on costs that are independent of consumption, but have an impact on the final bill. Examples of this data are taxes, meter rent, or state rebates. To add a new concept, you must click on the lower bar with the message New Concept. In addition, you need to follow the next steps. First, concept. Add the name by which you wish to identify the concept. For example, in Spain, the case of VAT. Then type. In the drop-down menu, there are different options to associate the concept with. Each one indicates what this value affects. In the case of the example, the VAT is a Spanish tax that affects the total of the invoice. Then select the type Total. In the case of a concept that affects only the power or energy terms, or both, the corresponding type of the option shown must be selected. The next one is value. Finally, in this section, the numerical number associated with the concept must be indicated. For the option Total, Energy, Power, and Energy plus Power, the value is represented in percentage, while for Fixed, it is represented in euros per bill cycle, which means euros per bill. If the value refers to a bonus of money to the user, it should be indicated with the sign minus. In the case of the example, the VAT has a value of 21% in Spain. The concept will then look like this. Now, it is shown an example of the possible concepts that can affect the electricity bill in the case of a home in Spain. If you wish to delete a concept, click on the cross to the left of the concept's name. Be careful because no security message is displayed. The last section to be filled in the right section is cycles. In this section, you select how often a bill arrives. This can happen, for example, every month or every 2 months. In this case, an example of a rate was defined that affected from June until the end of the year. Therefore, in the cycles window, there is only one cycle that runs from June 1st to the last day of December. This means that we only received one invoice on the last day of the year, with the information of energy consumption and expenditure. This is not the normal case. To change it, you can do it manually for each billing period, or it can be done automatically. We will explain both methods. The first one, manual, is as follows. Click on the new bill in the lower left corner of the window, and a new row will appear. Fill in the following sections. From and to indicates the dates between which the billing period expires. The initial date is the start date of the rate, in the case of the example, June 1st. The date on which the first invoice arrives can be changed from the start date. Plus, the date can be changed later if the invoice is delayed or brought forward a small period of time to be more precise, but it is not strictly necessary. In the example, we assume that an invoice arrives every month. Then select 2 and then June 30th by clicking on the calendar sign to the right of the date in the To section. The next step is duration. It automatically shows the days of the created billing period. In the case of the example, it is the whole month of June. New billing cycles will have to be added until the previously defined rate period is completed. In the case of the example, until the last day of December. If you want to delete a cycle, click on the cross symbol to the left of it under the From column. The second way of setting cycles is doing it automatically. In the lower part of the window, there is an icon of a variety. The symbol will divide the rate period automatically into the time indicated. 2 parameters must be specified. One of them is the one that starts each billing period. It will show all the possible days that you can start the billing process. Choose the one that suits your particular case. The second parameter is how often you will receive an invoice. Just as for the choice of day, click on the tab to the right of each month and select how often a new billing period begins. This can be, for example, every month, every 2 months, or every 3 months, by selecting each month, each 2 months, or each 3 months, respectively. In the case of the example, you will receive a new invoice on the first day of each month. Then select first and then each month. Finally, click on the variety symbol. 6 cycles have been automatically created, each with the duration of the corresponding month from June to December, starting on the first day of each month. In addition, you can always manually modify the end of billing period by clicking on the To column. If you return to the main section, you will see that there is a message summarizing the information on the type of rate and the characteristics of the rate created. With these steps, you have already defined the complete rate. Before leaving the window, you must save the rate in the respective symbol in the upper right corner of the window. Once saved, you can return to the rate screen by clicking on the return arrow in the upper right corner of the window. You will notice that a message appears at the top of the window. This appears when the period set in the rate section, Edit, Main, From and To of both rates overlap. You should take care when this incident occurs, as it indicates that you have 2 different invoices for the same day or month. Finally, you can return to the initial screen of the openZmeter by clicking on the return arrow in the upper right corner of the window. We have reached the end of the explanation. That is all for now. Please check our GitLab page or our web page for more information about openZmeter. Links in the description. Thanks for watching.